Hi, my name is Chris, and this is the Film Lounge. In this week's episode, we'll be looking at the importance of filmmaking from the point of view of camera distance. But before we do that, let's look at why film is such an important part of our lives.
How did we end up here? In this dump? You were a movie star, remember?
Films, or movies if you prefer, are everywhere. There are more and more movies coming out every year. Some good, some bad, and some that are absolutely awful. But still, we as an audience pile in to see them. Why? Is it a form of escapism? Do we live a life that we ourselves may never live? Or is it just pure entertainment? Let's face it, who doesn't love a car chase, explosions, gunfights, and giant robots beating the bejesus out of each other? Films have grown in their quantity over the last couple of decades, and it's easy to see why. Movies are a multi-billion-dollar industry. In 2014 alone, the US box office made over $2 billion before the end of March. The top 10 films of last year in excess of $2.5 billion. So what makes a great film? Well, it's not really one thing, but often a combination. Sure, you might like a movie because it has a certain star in it, or it's a certain genre. Or maybe it has been directed by your favorite director. But films are made up of a series of things. From a simple idea, we need to get things like a range of camera techniques, lighting, music, and clever editing, to name a few, in order to make a memorable film that catches our attention. So in this week's episode, we'll be focusing on camera distances. Many people may not think this is important, but it's the variety of shots that keeps us engaged. It takes a really talented filmmaker and a really engaging cast to make people sit through a single shot at a single distance without getting bored. Using a range of shots keeps us interested so that they can draw our attention into the important things that we should be paying attention to within a film. The example we'll use today is Sergio Leone's spaghetti western classic, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now, the reason this is such a good example for today's lesson on camera distance is because he uses a range of different camera distances to establish the situation and then build the tension within the scene. Our very first shot is an extreme long shot. We know this because the shot focuses more on the background and the scenery than the characters in the shot. When we look at this scene, we can see that these are three characters that are isolated and about to engage in a gunfight. No one can save them and no one can actually stop this situation, and that's obviously what builds the tension. Our next shot is a long shot. The normal signifiers for a shot like this is the fact that we can see the full length of the body, alright, which allows us to see things like body language and costume and some of the background. Here we can see that, and we can see that the characters are tense and sussing each other out before dueling. Our next shot is the medium shot, which focuses on the upper body, and this is where body language and facial expressions really come into play. These characters have stiff shoulders and poker faces. They're not giving away who's planning on shooting first. The music in this scene also helps to build that tension. Remember that in film, it's never just one thing that helps to build tension or create a scene. Finally, we get a close-up shot, and this is where tension builds up to its peak. Close-ups always show us the most important details. Here we can see facial expressions, the raw emotion. Here we can see the characters going for their first crack at the gun. Here's where we can actually see the character going to crack first. Throw in a shot of the hand going for the gun, and we see that our duel is reaching its tensest moment. Now we cut to a medium shot to establish our hero drawing his gun and shooting first. Then we cut to a long shot so that we can see the villain fall to the floor. And finally we cut to an extreme long shot as a symbolic gesture of just how empty his death is. In this week's lesson, you will work in a group to create your own version of a gun duel. You must ensure that each frame is shot so that it is clear that two gunmen are facing off against each other. You must ensure that you use an extreme long shot, medium shot, and close-up. You must cut these shots together to create tension, and you must remember to use music to help build this tension. This is the Film Lounge, signing off.